Hey, we want to spend some time talking to you about the area of tech.
Yeah.
And starting with, on the continuum of tech-iness, where do you put yourself? Are you a tech? Are you a nerd? Are you a geek? Are you a
Define all those
programmer?
terms.
So, I don't know. So, where would you say you fit in this space?
I would say I'm a super fan of all things tech. I bookmark, CNET, The Verge. I read every issue of T3. So I love to know what the new gadget is, what the new technology is. But I'm really bad at setting my devices up. That's why it's mandatory to have many friends who are nerds in tech to help you, because I'm like, how do you do this? I'm mystified. I feel like if they've gotten it dumbed down to a point where I can set the device up, they have effectively reached the lowest common denominator and may have some success. So I have a lot of gadgets that I enjoy, but I don't know how to turn this off or turn that on and things like that. But I love technology, and I always have, going back to my earliest childhood. I actually went out and bought the first Macintosh when it came out. It's just a beige box, which now looks so primitive, but it was so cutting edge at the time. It had this mysterious device called a mouse.
The first mouse. I mean, it was weird seeing that.
Yeah, and then, the kind of the graphic interface, which drew me in because my background was, I was a graphic designer, so I love graphics too. I like the aesthetics of things. And so that's one of the reasons I admired Steve Jobs so much, because he took technology, but he presented it in a cool way aesthetically. And he went to college, and I think the course he took was in some kind of lettering or something.
Calligraphy, yes.
Yeah, calligraphy of all things. But so he was like really fixated on the fonts that were used instead of generic fonts. And so he made the complex look cool, and he made it accessible to the masses. But I got this first Mac. I had no idea what to do with it. You had a little thing, floppy drive, put the little disc in, you'd watch it, or it was disk drive actually, not floppy drive. And I thought, finally I found a friend who was a pastor who showed me how to use it in my sermon prep, but I had to learn how to type first because I didn't know how to type. So I took a typing class, and I started with Mavis Teaches Typing. No one will remember that. Then I slowly, it took me like my first message I typed because I could write really quickly.
Now I remember those handwritten notes you had. You had this really small copy, all on one. I think it was a 14-inch page.
Yeah, yellow paper.
Just wow, it was amazing.
Well, it's because of when I would do cartooning, I would write all those little captions. So I was very fast hand lettering.
Right.
And my version of a computer crash back then was spilling coffee on my notes. They're gone. That did happen. But so it took me probably 4 days to type my first sermon because I was so slow, but then I got faster, and then I started understanding how to use this technology, and then I kind of went, over in the PC world. Then I was in the PC world and the Mac world, and I came back in the Mac world, and I went back in the PC world. So I'm not completely loyal to anything, technology-wise.
So
loyal to Christ, that's
how
it.
Did that change?
And my wife.
Okay, yes, amen.
Android, Apple, PC. I kind of lean toward all things Apple, but I've, like other companies have really made some advances lately. I'm sorry, go ahead.
An observation, I will find you often use the 30-day return policy.
I do.
You'll pick something up and go, no, I'm just playing with it for 30 days.
The first thing I say
I'm going to return it.
What is the return policy on this? And then I'll take it out into the real world and play with it. Like right now I have an iPhone here.
Right.
And then I've got, in my other pocket, I have the Samsung Edge here. And that's
just not right.
Well,
this
is Verizon, this is AT&T. Because when I travel, I'll go to places where AT&T is dead and Verizon works.
Right.
And then sometimes when I'm on the road, the battery on the iPhone wears down so quickly. I mean, of all the things to add to the new iPhone, they have this new technology. You press a little harder, and I don't care about that. Make the battery last longer.
Right. I think you hit a nerve.
So then you buy this super cool little design phone, and you buy this massive Morphe case or whatever, and it's like, just make the battery last longer, and I can live without the picture that kind of moves a little bit,
Right. So back to the
That's on the new iPhone.
Back to the sermon prep.
Yeah.
How did it change beyond just preparing that sermon as far as reference and study? You have quite a process now that the computers and the Bible is online, etc. Now you have everything at your fingertips.
Yeah, any pastor that isn't accessing these resources is missing so much. I mean, of course, there's Logos, amazing, a whole set of software, and they're always updating and adding new books. In fact, they have all my sermons on Logos that people can access. But, and then, of course, just, with the speed of the internet and things we can Google now, I use Bible Gateway a lot. Right. I have this primitive little program. It's called, what is it?
Brendan, shout that out.
What's that?
Quick verse.
Quick verse, thank you.
We have Brendan back there. He has the ministry of password for Greg.
Yeah, that's right.
Who else has a ministry of password for the people they support? Yeah, okay, good. So,
well, I got Quick Verse version 1. And for some reason, I liked it than all the newer versions, but it wouldn't run on my Mac, so I have, what's it called, Virtual PC? No. What is that program I have?
Parallels.
Yes. I hate Parallels. I hate it. It's always so weird. But the thing that Parallels has is a Google search engine where I can search my computer for sermons, and my Mac little magnifying glass up in the corner isn't as efficient as that. But I keep Parallels with a single program of Quick Verse version 1. And so I use it. But now a lot of times I'll just go on Google and I'll just hit Bible Gateway, and I'll find the verses I'm looking for, and there's all those translations there, and it's fantastic. And I mean, of course, cutting and pasting is kind of the no-brainer, because I have my sermon library, and I might pull a paragraph from an old message, put it in a new message, and it's just unbelievable what you can do with computers today. And I don't know why, but a lot of pastors are resistant to technology. I'm sort of the opposite. I'm embracing of it and wanting to know what's new and how to put it to good use.
Right. Let's talk about mission and vision.
Yeah.
Our mission statement at Harvest is knowing God and making Him known.
Yes.
And that's your passion.
Yeah.
And there's two parts to that. There's pastoral ministry and evangelism.
Yeah.
And you are called to both. Mm-hmm. And really, we think about evangelism in terms of something we do, but it's really a defined office in Ephesians 4, the evangelist.
Yeah.
Tell us about your viewpoint on that as an evangelist, kind of implementing your gift and working that as a passion in your ministry.
Well, an evangelist is one who basically proclaims the good news. And all Christians are called to evangelize. Clearly, we're called to go into all the world and preach the gospel. But God calls certain people to be an evangelist, a person who calls people to Christ. Kind of a good example of this is Billy Graham, uniquely gifted. So, we've done this a lot in our using tech from the moment it came out. We may have had the first church webcast ever. I can't prove it, but we were certainly among the first. And it was back in 1991, probably, maybe 92. And we were putting our webcast out. It was going out over modems, 56K type thing. You've got mail. That was AOL, right? But back in the old days. But so I was thinking, well, we'll just throw it out there. Who knows who'll watch it? And then I got a letter from a missionary who had set up his computer out in the middle of nowhere in the pitch dark, had a little generator powering it with a group of people sitting around it watching it. And he told me the story of how 10 or 15 of them came to Christ. And I thought, what? Watching the computer, and they were watching our Harvest Crusade. So from that point on, we began to take this more seriously. And now when we do our crusade, we may have 100,000 people over the weekend like we just had. But ultimately, through live views and viewing the archives, our web audience will now exceed our live audience, and sometimes by quite a bit. So then a few years ago, we had this idea of Harvest America. John Collins had this idea. And that was to, wherever we held our event, we would beam it across the country, in kind of an HD dedicated signal that people could pull down in their church sanctuary or in their front room or on their laptop or their tablet or smartphone or whatever they like. But mainly encouraging them to have an event where they would invite people almost as though we were doing a crusade in their church. And, you know, it's been very successful. I think our total numbers of people attending live events watching the HD signal are what? So do you know the number?
I saw the combined attendance, including, was like 700,000
Yeah.
with 33,000 over the last 3 years
Yeah.
for Harvest America.
But 33, here's the most important part of that number. 33,000 people came to Christ.
Right.
You know, so people will say, well, that doesn't work. Like there's a debate over satellite churches and like having the live video feed. That doesn't work. Anyone who says satellite churches don't work has never been to a satellite church.
Right.
Now, we've gone through a lot of, you know, trial and error in figuring out the best way to do it. And what we've discovered is with satellite churches, the music needs to be live. For some reason, music doesn't seem to communicate as well over like a video screen as teaching or preaching does. So live music is essential. There has to be a live element. But interestingly, when the speaker gets up to speak, people engage. And I've even witnessed it myself where they're watching a webcast, and when I'm saying to the audience I'm speaking to, how many of you are here for the first time? Everybody's hand will go up in that site. They immediately sort of forget that they're watching a video feed, and they just engage in what's being said. So this is a way for us to expand our ministry in the most cost-effective way ever.
Right.
You know, I mean, instead of building giant buildings now, we can, you know, have one place where the message goes out, and we can have sites even on the campus, which we've sort of done here at Harvest Orange County. We have multiple sites here where you can watch the message.
Right.
And then, you know, in our campus in Riverside, we have satellites in different areas. And some churches have even gone all around their state, like Life Church, Craig Rochelle. They're on the cutting edge of this. And I think if you counted all those people that attend his satellite churches, and I think you should, he probably pastors the largest church in America today.
Yes.
And a lot of that is through technology.
Yes.
So it's an amazing time to live in. And I think we need to embrace and use this technology, but we need to learn how to use it effectively.
Well, and, you know, we're talking about vision, we're talking about theology and what we're doing. We're preaching, we're evangelizing, and then we're bringing the tools to it.
Yeah.
So it's very important that you start that way and have your feet on the ground with biblical preaching, biblical evangelism, and then you bring the tools to it. I was counting up the ways that, and I'm probably short on this list, the ways that we are digitally dependent. Nowadays, we have our new responsive website, our daily devotions, our podcasts, our app. YouTube carries our content. Roku carries our content.
We have a dedicated Harvest channel on Roku, which is not that hard to set up, is it?
No, not at all. And now Apple's moving into this
and we'll have a
too.
channel on there as soon as we can.
Our e-bulletins to serve our church congregation, our text campaigns and communication, our social, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Even in preparation of your radio show, we're using technology to do the recording. We'll do a Google Hangout or a Skype session with Dave, the host, in Atlanta. We're here in Southern California, and then he pieces the whole thing together, and it's just
sounds
really,
like we're in the studio together.
And then, of course, you already mentioned satellite. And this big screen behind us, when we receive the signal from Riverside, you're about 15 feet tall. I'm really jealous of that, by the way. So everything we do, people assume there's an online version of what they're hearing on radio. There's a website for what they see on television. They can download this sermon if they don't make it to church. It's an assumption anymore. And it adds a great deal of effort to our world from a technical standpoint. But if we're not in that space, people will move on and find someone that is. So that's why it's very important that we occupy this space with everything that we do.
Yeah, you know, it's a weird thing. When I speak to pastors about technology and I talk about using Twitter, you know, they're like, what? Why would I use Twitter? You know, why would I use Instagram or Facebook? I'm like, what are you, crazy? I'm trying to explain this to these guys. I said, look, here's what it is. Because I was talking about this recently and guys were reluctant to go into it. I said, here's what it's like. It's like a microphone hooked up to two massive speakers. You walk up to the microphone and you speak and more people hear you. Now, why would you not use that platform? Because anybody can set up a Facebook page for free. You know, I have a blog site, But when I put stuff on my Facebook page, a lot more people see it. I mean, I posted a thing recently, and it's like, you can see how many people have viewed it. And it's like I was told, 1 million people have viewed this, or 2 million people have viewed this. So you realize that it gets passed on and shared. It's just amazing. And Twitter, it costs nothing to tweet, And so why not set these accounts up so even a startup church can get out there and they can have they could use their Facebook page as their home page until they get that set up later. And they could use Twitter, and those two things alone would help propel their ministry and get it into the hands of other people with links to, the messages and so forth. It's just crazy to not use this technology today. To me, you're missing out on so much.
Okay, back to our Harvest America testimony.
Yeah.
Let's play that now.
Sometimes emails from our listeners take our breath away and reconfirm the importance of making sure our hearts are right with God.
Hi, Pastor Greg. I just wanted to share with you that a 28-year-old man at my church attended Harvest America and recommitted his life to the Lord. The following Wednesday, he had a terrible headache. It was so bad that he went to the hospital. When he got there, they told him he had leukemia, and it was too late for him. He died that day. Pastor Greg, we are the parents of that man. Your ministry has helped us as parents who've lost a child. And whenever I'm feeling desperate to see my son, I listen to one of your messages and feel encouraged that our son is waiting for us in heaven. God bless you and your ministry.
As Pastor Greg would say, their son is a bigger part of their future than their past. Pastor Greg has a host of books and resources meant to encourage those who've suffered loss. Find them at harvest.org. You can email Pastor Greg at greg@harvest.org. He'd love to hear how God is proving himself faithful in your life.
Obviously, this clip went out on our radio program, but every time I hear it, I have to make sure no one's looking because I start getting choked up, that this happened. This was a real story. This was a real life that was changed. This guy had leukemia. He was going to die, but because we occupied the space of Harvest America with this technology, he was able to hear the gospel at a satellite campus, make a commitment to Christ, not knowing that he was going to be seeing the Lord very soon.
Yeah. We've heard a lot of really amazing stories that how people have come to Christ viewing our events. One person wrote me that when the invitation was given at the crusade, it was going out live over our website, harvest.org, that she looked over and her husband was like down on his knees in front of the computer. So I think there comes a point where they stop thinking of it as this is a computer, it's a webcast. They think God is speaking to me, and God speaks right through this technology, and here's a person coming to Christ. In fact, don't we have one of those audio sound bites with a whole family that came to faith?
Yeah, that one is the Christmas clip, Brendan. That's the Daniel. It's called Daniel Eichelberger. He's
Hi, Pastor Greg.
so.
I just wanted to drop you a quick line to let you know what happened right after Christmas. Your Christmas sermon was on the TV, and my 11-year-old stopped playing with her new Christmas toys, and she sat down next to me, listening attentively to your Christmas message. At the end, you asked people who wanted to accept Jesus Christ to raise their hands. My daughter raised her little hand from the couch. Needless to say, I was very happy as I dedicated my life to the Lord at a young age also. And when you asked those people to stand, my daughter stood up. I stood up with her to show how proud I was and gave her a big hug. Then my 4-year-old came over and stood on a footstool next to me. Then my wife stood up also and joined us. We all prayed together and dedicated and rededicated our lives to the Lord. Thanks, Pastor Greg, for making it a wonderful New Year's for our family.
We often hear that you can't really share the gospel in this format, that you need to be relational with people, get to know them, get into their space, into their lives, and then you can get spiritual and share the gospel with them. But we're finding well, this space is very relational, isn't it? What do you think of that?
Well, I think it's both and. I mean, certainly what we encourage people to do is, as the crusade approach is use your social media platforms to promote our event. And we give them graphics to use and things like that, even, tweets that we pre-write for them that they can retweet and so forth. But, we encourage them to use their relationships, their friendships, to leverage that person to watch a webcast or watch a link of an archive or whatever. And so that works very effectively. But at the same time, there are people that are just searching. I read recently that people going on Google late night, do you know what the 3 top words are that people type into their search engines late at night on Google? They are lonely, suicide, and depression. No, is it depression? It's lonely, suicide, I think it is depression. But to me, that's amazing because, lonely, suicide, porn. That's it. Lonely, suicide, porn. So those are the 3 things in people's minds late at night. Pornography, they're lonely, so they're looking. Is there something out there to help a lonely person? And then suicide, they're suicidal. That's probably because they're looking at porn. But, it just shows people are searching. And so if they can come into our space, our little world, your little world, and we can engage them with the gospel, there are people that will come to Christ right there. We have a dedicated site called knowgod.org. It's knowgod.org. But then we went
and NO, we have that one.
Yeah, we put knowgod.org in case some atheist is searching, they'll come too. No God, no God. Yeah. And so they come into the site, and we filmed a little video where I just talked directly to them. Here's how to know God. Pray with me right now. Obviously, it's better when you're doing video on computer, smartphone, etc., tablet, to not go so long. They don't need an hour. Sometimes, 3 to 8 minutes. You can get it in there. It's interesting. I read that the TED Talks, those things. I think they figured it's something like an 18-minute message. Is that the length? Somewhere around there, but something like 18 to 20 minutes is the perfect length for most people, which is very insulting to preachers because we go longer than that. But I think especially when we're using this technology, we need to, keep it short, keep it sweet, get to the point. I did a little search before I came over here on how people are consuming media right now, and I'm sure most people know this, but it says smartphones, they're everywhere now, of course. 1/2 of the adult population owns a smartphone. By 2020, 80% will have a smartphone. And then they pointed out that the capacity of a smartphone today is greater than what NASA had when they put men on the moon in 1969. So we carry that around in our pocket. Then another article said, according to data, 56% of online content is now consumed via smartphone, 44% on tablets, and 44% on desktop computers. So people are consuming more of their information now on their smartphone and their tablet than on their computer. So obviously we have to be working on multiple platforms and getting this information to people in a way that they can consume it and, more importantly, be impacted by it.
One of the things that is worth noting that, we come from the church world, and you mentioned, sermon length is, 30, 40 minutes, and we do things in a certain way. And it's very important, and these guys know this, to adapt your messaging and your process to the technology, and we need to be as wise as servant or as wise as serpents and gentle as doves, and bring our message into that space. And sometimes we want to ignore all those rules and just put our message packaged in whatever way we've always done it into that space. And we need to optimize for the medium that we're in. And it's just important that we do that. And I think a lot of times you guys are on the front lines of knowing those rules, and it's very important for you to come back to your pastors and your ministries and saying, hey, this is how this really works, and data matters. Our big new statement is, because data. Here's what data tells us how to do things. So Greg is, I've always appreciated, very flexible, and hey, we'd like to try this. Do it. See if it works. What about this? Do it. See if it works. So the support is there big time, and I really appreciate that, Greg.
No, thank you.
Now let's talk about budgets a little bit.
Yeah.
And this kind of is an off-the-cuff discussion. I know that technology tends to be an expensive thing. I know that my IT web team always has a PO in their hand when they approach me.
Yeah.
It's very strange. Well, we got to have this thing, or we got to have that thing, and it's because you haven't spent enough money. And so I'm always skeptical, and I question them. But how do we move into this space? We never budgeted for this kind of thing before.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think that we have to move in this space, and if we don't move into this space, we're missing one of the greatest opportunities. In the first century, the early church effectively changed the world in a relatively short period of time. Peter did not have a Facebook page. Thomas did not tweet. There was no webcasting, but they were able to reach the world. How? Because the Romans had set up a road system that had never existed before. And because Rome had conquered a good part of the world, they had bludgeoned people into submission, and the common language was Greek. So for the first time historically, you have a road system and you have a common language. So the Christians, what are they going to say? Well, we can't use those roads because they're secular. No, they used the Roman roads and they used the common language, and they brought the gospel to their generation. Okay, so here we are now in the 21st century. Because of technology, the world is open to us. We have to go up over those roads, and use the web, so-called, to catch men alive. That's what we're supposed to do, to go fishing for men. Let's grab them. There are people out there searching. They want to know God, and we got to do it. So I think first you have to understand this must be done. But then, you have to maybe take baby steps. And for a startup church where there's not a lot of resources, start with the obvious: free social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can use Periscope and other technologies that are emerging. And then, it'd be good to set up a basic web page. And then of course, get good equipment. And as time moves on, hopefully the pastor will see some fruit from that, and they'll want to expand that.
Right. And then, of course, security is a big deal.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, it'll cost you more
Yeah.
to be cheap in the area of
Yeah.
security, and either find someone who knows what they're doing in this space,
Yeah.
or find a contractor that can help you in this
Right.
space, because it will cost you a lot more in the long run if you get hacked or something breaks
Yeah.
or you lose information. So I think that is
Yeah.
one of the trump cards.
Have
for
you ever
us.
been hacked?
I have not, fortunately.
I have these crazy-
Don't even think about it, you guys. Yeah,
I'll tell you his password right now. It's the name of his pet, 1234. No, there's people that pose as me on Facebook all the time. They'll take a picture off my page, put it up there, and then they'll go out and start soliciting funds. Drives me crazy, But so that's what's happening in the world we're living in.
Yeah, so security, and then realistically, like you said, it's not that expensive. I mean, you look at radio, television, you look at other forms,
Yeah.
print, advertising, etc. This is a deal.
Well, yeah, and because, the younger generation is not getting their content primarily on TV anymore.
Right.
They're viewing it online. And so they'll wait till it's shown, and then they'll go view it online. And so, we've got to be aware, if we want to speak to a younger generation, I think there'll always be a place for TV ministry. That I don't think it's the only place like it once was for reaching the masses.
Right.
And there's always going to be a place for radio, but now there's a lot of our listeners listen to the podcast as opposed to the live radio program, or they view our TV program, on their tablet or their computer as opposed to watching it while it's actually on. And even among those who view it, they probably record it and view it later. So, times are changing, and we've got to adapt. Paul said, I become all things to all men. And to me, it's just adapting, never compromising our message. But we absolutely can adapt to technologies. One thing we do at our church periodically, and I encourage other pastors to do, is periodically just blow stuff up. And by that I mean, look at ministries.
We all really love this, by the way. When you say blow this up, we just love it.
Well, I look at something, it's costing money, it's not producing results, and I need more money for something that is producing results. And so I'll look at this thing and say, why are we still doing this? I mean, I think if a church still has a cassette ministry, it's time to blow it up. Because you have to get your cassette players on eBay now, right? So do they can you even find them in stores anymore? I don't know. But so, there are people that get stuck in their ways. Well, we've always done it this way. Yeah, but it's not effective anymore. Blow it up. And go put your resources in an area where fruit is coming.
What is that leadership quote about taking people?
Yeah.
What is that?
A leader is someone who takes people where they don't necessarily want to go, but they're glad they got there once they arrive.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a great model.
A leader has to look down the road and say, we're going to go here, and people, we don't want to go there. And then when they get there, they say, oh, we're glad we went.
That happened when we put screens in our sanctuary for the first time. It was heresy.
Oh, yeah.
In a lot of people's mind to have IMAG, so...
Yeah, one couple wrote me, we don't come to church to watch TV, and we're leaving.
Right.
Bye. Sorry. And I think we figured that half our congregation watch our service on a video screen now. Maybe even more.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you're preaching, you look at their faces. Are they looking at you?
No.
They're looking at the screen.
No, they're actually looking at you in particular.
That's right.
Wherever you are in the room, people are looking.
Yeah.
That's how attractive you are.
Well.
No, they are looking at the screen. I'll be standing here at the pulpit speaking, and people are looking this way. So, we don't have to be afraid of these things.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned social
Yeah.
a couple of times already. Let's dive a little deeper into that.
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel like you want to communicate there? What gets results? What do you see? What's surprising? Talk to us about
Well, I
that.
think, every platform is interesting because sometimes I have a little feature on my Instagram where I can post a photo with a quote, and I can send it to Twitter, and I can send it to Facebook. And that works for some things, but I found the audiences are so different. Like I'll post maybe a family photo on Instagram, and people, that's cute, like that. There's kind of a friendliness on that platform for the most part. You put it on Facebook, it's like, what is this, dominated by people that have too much time in their hands? They get into an eternal debate on a thread, commenting on something I said, and sometimes then people are putting links to their own agendas and stuff like that. And so one of my favorite features on Facebook, I love this feature. I wish I could do it in real life. Delete, block. Just block. You never will come back on my page again. I wish I could do that to some people. They start talking, delete, block, they're gone, Of course, you can't do it in real life, but...
You're saying that in love, though.
Yeah, no, not in love. Because there's some people, as J. Vernon McGee used to say, the only exercise some Christians get is running down others, and what was the other one? Running down others and something else. But, the idea is there's some people just like to argue. So I think about, okay, what I'm going to post where? Because I'll put a quote on Instagram, with a little picture, and people seem to like those quotes, little inspirational thoughts, maybe from a message or something else. But then on Facebook, they're very analytical, and there's a lot of commentary on it. But it's a good platform, And then of course Twitter is different altogether, and I found it just better to craft a statement that's only for Twitter, and make it work within that platform. I mean, you stop and think about it. The Beatitudes could have been tweets. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Just little bite-sized pieces of truth. And so I don't think I've mastered these environments, but I'm getting to understand that each one is different. And sometimes I'll post something on Instagram. I won't post on Facebook. And sometimes I'll put like maybe an article up on Facebook that I can't put obviously on Instagram because it's image driven. And, and there's certain things that seem to resonate in Twitter with tweets rather that don't resonate elsewhere. So I'm just kind of finding my way through it all. And Periscope, I haven't even started using that, but Brendan, our tech guy, put it on my phone so I could start, periscoping. And I was on a trip, and I'm walking along. All of a sudden, I start getting texts. My phone's like vibrating. Look, and they said, you're live on Periscope. You're on Periscope live right now. I look down. Somehow I'd launched Periscope in my pocket. I'm live, and people are coming on, and I'm just walking along randomly talking. That freaked me out. I deleted the app. I said, I'm doing this in a controlled environment, because, you think that could launch at a really bad time. That's a true story.
That is crazy. Brendan, if we have any questions, think about that. I've got one more item I want to hit with Greg, and that is kind of moving into a space, a ministry that you never wanted to be in, a ministry of bereavement. You joined a club in 2008, and what we have found from a social and from a technology standpoint is it got out there and encouraged and ministered to an amazing number of people who ended up, in the same time of bereavement. And it's been a ministry that has just been so powerful. I've seen you speak to people in person. I've seen you communicate and minister in this space that has opened a ministry up. And I have an audio clip I'd like to play. It's called Robert, Brendan. And this is tech and ministry combined powerfully.
About 2 months ago, I left California to attend Oral Roberts University with my family, my wife Olympia, my daughter Noah, and my son Solomon. 2 days after arriving, my son suffered an asthma attack. We rushed him to the hospital where he went into cardiac arrest. We got a heartbeat back, but after 2 days in the hospital, he passed away. He was only 4. About 3 months before he died, I heard about your son, and I was so impressed on how you went through it, or rather, how you're going through it. I didn't know why then, but every day I would go into work at church where I'm a worship leader, and I would start the day by watching the YouTube video of you talking after your son died. I began to pray that if I would ever face tragedy, as you say, we all face it, that I would have the grace to say, I still believe. Because of what you shared, I was able to use this moment to share my faith. I preached at my son's funeral, and 10 people gave their lives to the Lord. Since then, my wife and I have found a new zeal to share the gospel. Thank you for letting God use the tragedy of your son dying to encourage me and prepare me for what I never thought would ever happen to my family. I can't wait to see my son in heaven because I know that he's there. Love you, Pastor Greg. Thank you for never compromising.
So this guy, Robert, was ministered to. Watch that video over and over again, and you get so many emails, you get so many people contacting you through this great technology tool to minister to them.
Yeah, our son died in an automobile accident in 2008, and he was the lead designer at our church, and he was really into flash graphics, which were just kind of emerging, I think, more at that point, and really so talented. And in the event that man is referring to was, it happened on a Thursday, and the following Sunday at church, we had a guest speaker. I mean, obviously I wasn't going to preach. And, we got up, Kathy, my wife, and I got up Sunday morning. Well, what do we do? Well, let's go to church. I mean, what else are we going to do? That is where we wanted to be. We felt like we really needed the church. We needed worship. We needed to hear God's word. Because when it was all said and done, we were just two parents in grief. And so after the message was done, the band, our worship band, did the song by Jeremy Camp, I Still Believe. So I decided in the moment to go up and just tell everyone that, I'm okay, I'm alive, and we're trusting God. So I got up and said, I still believe, and I just shared a few thoughts. It was not planned, but then that ended up getting posted and has ministered to a lot of people because it was as close to the event as you could be. And the two hardest days for someone who has lost a loved one, I think especially a child, is the day of the birth and the day of the death. So the death day, the anniversary, is marked in your mind. You never forget it. And the day of their birth is marked. So, when those days come for Christopher, April 1st for his birthday and July 24th for the day he went to be with the Lord, I'll usually post a photo and I'll say something. I'll post this on Facebook. It's insane, the responses. And what I realize is there's a huge community out there of mourning people that don't know where to go. So they'll come on Facebook and they'll all start telling their heartbreaking stories. I read them, it brings tears to my eyes because I just hear story after story. But then I see people sharing what God has said to them and what the Word has done for them, and others comforting those, and it becomes this caring community of mourning people, right in the aftermath of that post. And people kind of know that I'm a place they can go and hopefully find resources like that. So I'm thankful for that, because one of the few comforts you pull out of an event like that is being able to help somebody else, and you don't want to waste your pain. I mean, if you had it to do over, you would obviously not want that event in your life. But at the same time, it happened to me. And so I want to do what I can to help other people. It's been said that, if you preach to hurting people, you'll never lack for an audience. And I think there's just so many hurting people out there. And so we found this is a very effective way to minister to a lot of people that don't know where to go, and it gives them a place to land.
So to sum up, this technology just gives us longer arms. It gives us a longer reach for very serious ministry, for evangelism, for fun. I mean, you have Play-Doh pictures and videos with you and the kids playing, and people appreciate that. And
I put fun stuff up too. I think it's very important for ministers, especially with platforms like Instagram and Facebook, to not make it all just purely ministry, and it can come off too corporate. I think it's really important for there to be a little personal life there. And so I'll intersperse, a serious post. Like today, I put up our devotion. I might have an article, I might have a quote, but then another day it'll just be something random. Here's the hamburger I had for lunch. People love stuff like that, So I keep it real. I want to keep it personal. It's not all just promoting ministry and preaching sermons. I use it to put a little bit of my life in there, but because people like that, they connect with that. And so I think it's important for pastors, when they're using this to get involved in this technology and just not have someone else do all of their tweeting and posting for them. They get in there and, learn how to find their voice in those platforms and use it.
All right.
Yeah.
I think that's it for us. We're about out of time. Any words of encouragement for this group in particular?
Well, we're just glad you're all here. And this is our new campus of Harvest Orange County. And so this has been open only a short time. And this used to be sort of a graphic design building, and we sort of adapted it for our church. A lot of these surfboards hanging and stuff, they were already here. So there's some fun elements. And I think you guys are going to have a great conference. Looks like you have great food, too. I saw some of the food vendors they brought in. Very impressive. And so we're just...
Funny how they figure that stuff out.
Yeah.
The tech community eats well. I don't know.
But we admire you guys. We appreciate you guys. And what you do is very important. And I think it's becoming more important in the time in which we're living. So we're appreciative of you and thankful that you're all here. Glad to spend a little time with you.
All right, Aaron.